Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Brittany Weinhold, and I serve as an education programs professional on the SPCSA school support team, supporting with school improvement, Title I, Title II, Title IV, McKinney-Vento, and foster care programs. Today, we will walk through the key components of creating high-quality school improvement plans for the 26-27 school year using NDE's Plan for Learning platform. Our session will include guidance on organizing your work, conducting needs assessments, developing goals, and implementing evidence-based strategies. I will provide you with a high-level overview of the 26-27 SIP and Plan for Learning. Please note that more in-depth instructions will be included in the 26-27 SIP guidance, which was sent out in the SPCSA's weekly newsletter and is also available in the SPCSA's Canvas repository. NDE's updated desktop monitoring requirements allow schools to move away from the siloed funding conversations and toward a comprehensive, aligned planning process. Just as we support the whole child, we should plan for the whole school, integrating funding streams to support shared goals instead of discussing each grant separately. Align Title I, Title II, Title IV, IDEA, and other funds to the same identified needs. Use one stakeholder meeting to review all applicable funding. Document how each funding source supports your school-wide priorities. Measure effectiveness across strategies, not in isolation. The SIP process and Plan for Learning is designed to support this integrated approach. One plan, one team, one aligned strategy, multiple funding streams, all working together. Schools will often braid local, state, and approved federal funds they receive. As you begin to complete the Fund Source Budgets tab, the SPCSA's grants team would like me to share a few important funding considerations. Funding consideration number one. Remember, while federal funds can be used to support a strategy or intervention, their uses and purposes are tracked individually, and their respective compliance requirements must still be met. Federal funds are most commonly used to fill gaps or provide additive services in program delivery, such as paying for stipends or funding additional training when demand exceeds the budget. Local or state funds for intended beneficiaries may not be decreased or diverted merely because of the availability of federal funds. Funding consideration number two. Charter schools should consider and determine how the program, activity, intervention, or strategy would be funded if the federal grant funds were not available. Is the funding sustainable? Remember that funding or using federal education funds cannot replace services that schools or the intended beneficiary would otherwise receive in the absence of obtaining a federal grant award. This is commonly known as the supplement, not supplant rule. Supplanting is presumed if any of the following is true. Grant funds are used to provide services that are required under other federal, state, or local laws. The school provided the same services with non-federal funds in the prior year. The school would not otherwise provide the same services without the federal funds. Please be cognizant and careful using federal title and IDEA funds. While ESSER COVID relief funds did not have a SNS requirement, federal ESEA title funds such as Title 1A, Title 2A, Title 3EL, Title 4A, etc., and IDEA, Part Big B, Little b, are susceptible to the supplement, not supplant requirement, and this should be carefully considered during the school planning and budgeting process. The last funding consideration we would like to highlight during this presentation is funding consideration number 3. Please ensure that relevant fiscal staff are involved in the SIP development process. Our team has noticed that on occasion, staff responsible for program development may not always closely collaborate during the SIP development process with staff responsible for grant applications or budget development in the GMS. Often, fiscal staff or contracted staff employed have the expertise and knowledge around federal grant allowability and fiscal requirements that must be adhered to, such as the supplement, not supplant rule or maintenance of effort and or comparability requirements. These stakeholders can assist in the discussion of how to best braid and coordinate local, state, and federal funds to meet school goals. It is critical that staff is coordinated and aligned between the planning tool, Plan for Learning, and the budget tool, GMS. Grant fund sourcing entered in the school SIP must replicate and be aligned to the same requested budget details entered in the SPCSA's grant management system. The SPCSA strongly encourages school administrators and fiscal staff involved in the SIP development process review federal grant training and requirements by accessing the SPCSA's Grant Administration Canvas portal, which I have linked in this presentation. It's also linked in the 26-27 SIP guidance that went out in the weekly. If you need any support with that, please just reach out to me or the grants team. After logging into the portal, users should scroll down to the federal grants module to review content related to applicable grants the school expects to receive. So now let's move on to the next slide so you can see how to enter the applicable budget amounts for identified funding sources before entering your school's goals. You must enter your budget amounts for your funding sources before entering your goals. Fund source budgets are required and should be done before your goals. To do so, navigate to the Inquiry Areas tab, click Fund Source Budgets, enter the estimated allocations for each funding source. Title I, IDEA, Title II, Title IV, McKinney-Vento, etc. Enter 0 for non-applicable funding sources. Amounts may be adjusted later. Each improvement strategy with a cost must be linked to a funding source. You will need to select funding sources in your action steps, and you will not be able to do that unless you enter overall budget amount. Remember to press save at the bottom of the page. Failure to complete this section will result in rejection. Okay, we're moving on to the Stakeholders tab. This tab keeps your planning process organized. Record your team members' roles and meeting logs to ensure accountability and transparency. Your committee must include at least one person from each of the following groups: principal, other school administrator, teacher, paraprofessional, parent, student. If your school is a middle school or high school, tribes or tribal orgs, if present in the community, specialized instructional support personnel, if appropriate. Please note, if your school does not employ certain personnel, such as paraprofessionals, or your school only has one administrator, you may omit these staff members. Your plan will be rejected if your committee does not include at least one principal, a teacher, and a parent. If your school is a middle or high school, your plan will be rejected if it does not include a student. As part of the updated desktop monitoring programmatic requirements, schools must be able to provide documentation demonstrating that stakeholder consultation occurred regarding federal funds like Title I, Title II, Title IV, IDEA, McKinney-Vento, and other applicable funding streams. Your school's continuous improvement team must meet to discuss student data and root cause analysis during the needs assessment, development of goals and improvement strategies. All state and federal funding received by the school, the proposed use of funds, how the effectiveness of funds will be measured. The following documentation should include meeting agendas, presentation slides, for example, a PowerPoint outlining each grant and its use, meeting notes or minutes, stakeholder sign-in sheets. The meeting logs section in Plan for Learning should be used to document these discussions. You may also use this section to record additional community outreach or consultation activities hosted by your school. If your plan does not include at least one documented meeting reflecting stakeholder involvement in plan development and funding discussions, your plan will be rejected. Entering and uploading meeting um, in the Stakeholders tab, you will need to make sure that during the SIP development process, schools must document at least one meeting that includes your needs assessment data, discussions, um, goal and improvement strategy development, discussion of state and federal grants applied for, like Title I, Title II, Title IV, IDEA, Make an Evento, etc. How the school plans to use those funds, how effectiveness of funds will be measured. Please note that at the time of the SIP development, schools may not yet know final grant allocations. It's acceptable to discuss the grants applied for and how the school intends to use those funds pending approval. To enter your team, please click the Stakeholders tab from the side menu, then click the plus sign next to the three-dot menu, ellipses, to add members to and meetings logs to that section. You can click the three-dot menu or ellipses to the right to name it School Continuous Improvement Team, or use any other name that you feel is appropriate for your team. To enter a meeting, select the date and time of the meeting, click the check mark button, and it will be on the right to save that entry. Once saved, an option will appear allowing you to upload supported documentation, such as your agenda, presentation slides, sign-in sheets, or meeting notes. At the time of the initial SIP submission, you are not required to upload sign-in sheets or files or notes. However, you may do so if available. Schools should retain all documentation for their records because it will be requested during desktop monitoring. And if there's any epicenter tasks, which there will be, um, you will have to submit that documentation as well. Moving on to the Community Outreach Activities tab. To enter your community outreach activities into the app, click the Community Outreach Activities tab from the side menu. For each entry in this tab, add the activity, date, and lessons learned. Please do not forget to click Save. Okay, we're moving on to the Needs Assessment tab, Summary section. You will need to set a date for your needs assessment. Click the Needs Assessment tab, choose Summary, click Set Date to enter a date of when the needs assessment was conducted. The needs assessment is conducted during the grant application process, so you may wish to enter an appropriate date such as February 15th or 16th. I think the 16th is when it actually opens. You must complete the needs assessment summary page or your plan will be rejected. When you click each inquiry area, it will bring you to a page to complete the areas of strength and growth. Please click Save after each entry. Please scroll down after completing the areas of strength and growth. You'll find the Student Success Equity Resource Support section. Based on your data dive and root cause analysis, what resource and equities like people, time, money did you identify for the following student groups specific to this goal? Consider any challenges these groups face. What specifically will you do to support them with overcoming these challenges? and this must be completed for all three areas. Once you're done with that section, please scroll down. After completing the Student Success Equity Resource Support section, you'll find the problem statement and critical root cause section. Please click Save once completed. Be sure to do this for all three inquiry areas, including student success, adult learning culture, and connectedness, or your plan will be rejected. Priority problem statements is next in the Needs Assessment tab. Once you have entered all the items in your needs assessment summary, you must prioritize your problem statements. To prioritize, click the needs assessment, click on the priority problem statements, click the star on all problem statements, as you will need to link them to your goals later in the plan. Be sure to prioritize your problem statements or your plan will be rejected. Next in that tab is the data documentation. To complete the data documentation portion of the needs assessment, click Needs Assessment in the side menu, click Data Documentation, check off any boxes on this page that represent data that you reviewed during your needs assessment. There are multiple sections with a variety of data types that you may select. It is recommended that you enter the link to your NSPF report in the accountability data section. Be sure to click Save once you're finished so that all areas in each box is updated. If you do not complete the data documentation page, we will have to reject your plan. Okay, next in that tab is the guidance for completion. This tab serves as your roadmap. Use the resources provided by NDE to ensure your plan aligns with state expectations and leverages evidence-based practices. Once you have added all three inquiry areas and set a date within each inquiry area, you can begin to work on your goals. You may add as many goals as you would like, but at minimum, your plan must include at least 4 school goals, 2 student success goals, 1 general school student success goal, 1 student success goal specifically dedicated to special education, 1 adult learning culture goal, and 1 connectedness goal. If your plan does not include the 4 required goals, your plan will be rejected. To enter your goals into the app, choose the appropriate inquiry area for the goal, press New School Goal or Add School Goal. Both buttons will have the same result. Click the plus sign to add the goal. All 4 goals must be SMARTY goals or your plan will be rejected. SMARTY goals must include baseline data, target data, a measurement method, and a completion date. Please refer to the resource titled Writing a SMARTY Goal. I have linked it here. You will also find it in the 26-27 SIP guidance to assist you with properly formatting your goal. Okay, next in the inquiry areas tab is formative measures. Um, in the box labeled formative measures, enter the formative measures that you will use to evaluate your goal throughout the school year. Formative measures are used to measure your progress toward your goal throughout the year. And a link to support you with writing your formative measures is here, linked here in the presentation, and also included in the 26-27 SIP guidance. For your special education goal, your formative measures box should also include the state APR indicator that is relevant to the goal. Please note that the SPED goal must be based on data analysis and aligned with the SIP APR indicator. And I have also included a link here to support you with finding the appropriate APR indicator for your SPED goal. It's also linked in the 26-27 SIP guidance. Once you have added your goals, you will be able to add improvement strategies for each goal. You must add at least one strategy for each goal. If you do not add at least one improvement strategy for each goal, your plan will be rejected. To add an improvement strategy to a goal, click New Improvement Strategy and then complete all sections of the improvement strategy template that is displayed here. If you do not complete all sections, your plan will be rejected. In this box, you will list all information related to action steps associated with this improvement strategy. State all action steps needed to implement the strategy. You must include at least one professional development action step for each strategy. For your professional development action step, you must also state which professional development standard is aligned to the professional development. Professional development standards are linked here and will also be linked in the 26-27 SIP guidance. If you do not include a PD action step, and align it to the professional development standards, your plan will be rejected. Okay, next is the positions responsible. You may list all positions that are responsible for implementing components of this strategy. If this section is not complete, your plan will be rejected. Click the blue button to add problem statements and critical root causes. A pop-up will appear that allows you to select one of your priority problem statements. Check the box and click Apply to select the problem statement. Please note that if you are unable to select a problem statement that you have previously entered, please refer to the instructions in the priority problem statement section of the 26-27 SIP guidance. If this section is not completed, your plan will be rejected. Click the blue button to enter the associated funding source. Once you have clicked the blue button, enter the appropriate information within the pop-up. You must enter resources needed and select a funding source. You do not need to enter FTE, account codes, or amounts. If you have multiple funding sources tied to the strategy, click the blue button and add another source. If this section is not completed, your plan will be rejected. All improvement strategies must be supported by an evidence-based intervention, or EBI, aligned to ESSA. EBI levels 1 is strong. Randomized controlled trials, or RCT. For example, that would be a structured literacy with RCT. Level 2 is moderate quasi-experimental studies. An example would be Tier 2 math with comparison groups. Level 3 is promising correlational studies with controls. For example, attendance interventions with correlational evidence. Level 4 has rationale, research-based rationale or theory. For example, PLCs grounded in theory. Please choose strategies with robust evidence to create the likelihood of success. Higher tier strategies are ideal, but tier 4 options can work if they are well rationalized and monitored. Okay, next is the school-wide and targeted assistance Title I element. You are required to complete this section if you are a Title I school. There are Title I tabs that we'll review on the next slide, and there are sections that align to these elements. Please click the elements that align to this goal. Completion of the ESSA Title I tab and Plan for Learning is required, and this is what that ESSA Title I tab looks like. This tab ensures compliance with ESSA requirements for Title I schools. Only Title I schools will need to complete this tab. So only schools who receive Title I funding for this fiscal year. You will need to complete the school-wide and targeted assistance Title I elements tab and the Title I personnel sections within the ESSA Title I tab. You must document how Title I funds are used and personnel supported by these resources. Okay, next is the plan checklist. The plan checklist identifies requirements for a school improvement plan or SIP, it is important to remember that the improvement planning process is based on the premise that when these pieces are accurately identified, well planned, widely understood, and correctly implemented, student performance will increase. Once you have completed your plan, uh, you will return to the Home tab and review the plan status section. For initial SIP submissions, for the upcoming school year, green check marks are not required, as those will be completed during status checks in October and January, with reviewing our journey completed in May of the following school year. Once reviewed, select Submit so your plan can be reviewed and approved by SPCSA staff. The SPCSA and NDE cannot provide feedback on the plan until it is submitted. Once your SIP is submitted, it will be reviewed by SPCSA staff and either approved or rejected. If your plan is rejected, schools must review and address feedback provided by SPCSA staff in both the Plan for Learning Plan Feedback tab and or the Plan Notes tab within Plan for Learning. Schools are expected to review all reviewer notes related to the status of the SIP, address required revisions within 48 hours of the status update by SPCSA staff. Grant applications will not be reviewed until your school's SIP is approved. Delays in responding to SIP feedback will result in delays to grant approvals. So one thing to help you with being on time with reviewing that feedback is to turn on your notifications. And to do so, navigate to the settings at the top of the app, then click Manage Account and Manage Alerts. You're going to go ahead and click All That Applies. This will enable alerts for plan feedback, status checks, and plan updates, so you want to do that right away. Okay, next in the Inquiry Areas tab is the status checks and reviewing our journey. Status checks must be completed for each improvement strategy in October and January. To access those tabs, you'll need to navigate to the Inquiry Areas tab, click Status Checks and End of Year Reflection. Use the highlight overdue strategies to identify any missing checks. Okay, reviewing our journey. This is a required reflective component and does not replace the status checks. The end of year reflection or reviewing our journey must be completed and planned for learning for each improvement strategy in May. The epicenter task that goes along with the reviewing our journey usually comes the following year at the beginning of the year, once you receive your NSPF star rating and other data, so that you can look back and reflect, and then you can go ahead and go back to your previous years and May to make sure that all check marks are green. And to access that, you would navigate to the inquiry areas, click status checks and end of year reflection, use highlight overview strategies to identify missing checks. So in addition to completing status checks, schools must ensure that all required alignment indicators in the plan status section are accurate before submitting status checks in Epicenter. Improvement strategy status checks for the initial SIP submission for the upcoming school year, green check marks below that improvement strategies area are not required. Green check marks will be completed during status checks in next school year's October and January months, with the reviewing our journey completed in May as well of that following year. The needs aligned column must reflect the same number of prioritized problem statements attached to the improvement strategy as the total number of prioritized problem statements in the plan. So for example, if 4 problem statements are prioritized, the needs aligned column should display 4. The improvement strategies aligned column must reflect the same number of improvement strategies with a prioritized problem statements attached as the total number of improvement strategies in the plan. So for example, if your plan has 4 improvement strategies, that column should display 4 as well. If the needs, aligned, and improvement strategies columns do not reflect full alignment, the status check epicenters, the epicenter task, when you submit those, I will have to reject those as well. So even if you have it, all the other areas in the SIP completed, if it is not aligned when I go to check it at the time of the status checks, then I will have to reject it. Schools are strongly encouraged to review the plan status page carefully and correct any alignment issues prior to submitting status checks in Epicenter. Okay, now we are moving on to the timeline. Once NDE opens access to the Plan for Learning platform, you will have full access to edit your 26-27 SIP. Grant applications will open on February 16th. During grant applications, schools must have an SPCSA approved SIP and Plan for Learning for the 26-27 school year by March 4th, 2026, in order for your grant apps to be reviewed. It is recommended that you submit your plans at least 2 weeks prior to March 4th to allow yourself time to make corrections to potential rejections. Complete the SIP Epicenter task as well. And if you need any support with any of this, please contact me. Again, more in-depth instructions will be in the 26-27 SIP guidance, which was sent out in the SPCSA's weekly newsletter and is also available in the SPCSA's Continuous Improvement Repository and Canvas. Should you have any further questions, feel free to email me at BrettanyWeinhold@Brettany or at spcsa.nv.gov. Once again, that's Brettany Weinhold at spcsa.nv.gov. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you all.